Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. The title is "O Gentle Soul, You Must Carry On and Beyond." That means there's something more than carrying on. We carry beyond. We carry our attention beyond where it has been. I wanted to take a different angle tonight and focus more of something I have observed in the cultural program. First, before that, a quick point about the subtitle. The subtitle can be found in the description, and when I say the road is long but the destination is known, this is the most important point that I am considering as a human being, that every person on this planet that has ever voiced any sort of knowing, that they have deep down known that it is all going to the unknown. And when our species becomes mature, it starts establishing relationships with the unknown, not just what it knows. Our knowledge doesn't replace the unknown. The unknown is much bigger, so the destination is unknown. That means this podcast is for certain a certain known state of mind. Beyond this, our words mean nothing. Now, what have I observed about the cultural program? I have noticed a sort of shift in human character, and I felt it was specific, but I realized that every human lifetime comes with a great obstacle. I shouldn't say great obstacle, but I should say with a great challenge. That means we have not come here for life to just be easy, and we have not come here for life just to be hard. There's something aside from whatever part of the spectrum we may find ourselves. It's like the human event. There's something more, the living event, I should say, the living universal event. It's as if every being on this planet is a great being. Now, some of the beings that have in some sense arose, their eyes have opened in the realm. Poetically, it's as if the question comes, why manifestation has evoked me? Why from the slumber of non-existence my eyes open now? That shift in what happens in culture is that when we look at the infant, when we look at children, especially the newborn child doesn't have a psychology. And because the child doesn't have a psychology, we have to wonder, how is the child communicating to its environment? And its communication is sensory based. That means when a human being enters this world, it's like there is no idea of you, there is no idea of the world, there's no idea of yourself to lose, there's no idea of the world to lose, it's just oblivion. I shouldn't say oblivion, I should say it's the child is oblivious to the complexity that is actually in the world. And all our education on this planet is to just notice the different angles the world has opened to us from. Now, the child doesn't have a psychology, and this, I say this often in these talks, that this French psychologist by the name of Jacques Lacan, he calls it the mirror effect. And what he means is, like, a child notices itself in the mirror, and that's when it's a person. And that's a crucial moment, but now that child thinks it only sees its reflection in the mirror. That's the issue. We think that our reflection is only in the mirror. Every person we have ever seen that we've had an emotion on, we've had an emotion on our own reflection in them. And I will explain this later. But what it is that the soul starts gentle because it has no idea. Children don't suffer. Oh, Jamie, I just saw the chat section. I'll turn down the music a little, guys. Hold on. I'll tell the music to keep it down. Okay, where was I? Yeah, so the human being enters this world without an opinion. When I go back in my youth, life was simpler. Life was more simply understood. You know, in my youth, the world had less impossibles in it. Less structural overlay on meaning, I would say. But anyways, the child, I'm just adjusting the volume for the listeners. Let me know, people can let me know if there's anything off with the sound. But anyways, so the child has no clue, and it is meant to be like that because all of childhood is to find the clues of what is going on in this realm. I mean, just being a human being is that. Now, the child has a nature, depending on the child's programming. You know, on one level, you know, people who entertain metaphysical context, they don't tend to see the individual child as just from this time. Like, I've spoken to people who entertain reincarnation. They see the notion of past lives, and when a child behaves regardless of its environment in a certain way, they connect it to that, right? But at the same time, one can say the brain could be just such an advanced technology. I had literally an hour discussion on this with my atheist uncle, on that when a person goes to sleep, is the attention actually, like, let's say somebody sleeps and okay, I'll give you an, oh man, I'm going everywhere with this. Imagine somebody goes out of body. Now, to discuss that, one angle is the brain is too complex, we don't understand it, the brain is doing it. Another explanation from the metaphysical angle is that there is something more than the body, and the person has just noticed that, you know. There is no story yet to the world. This is why childhood is very innocent. In my own childhood, it's like the human being that doesn't know better, and the human beings that know better and don't abide by, usually in society, tend to be given, you know, the harsher hand. So we start off without knowing anything. We start off unknown. The child identifies with a sense of self. It pinpoints itself in the mirror. It recognizes its psychology is overlaying on everything. That means when a person looks at an object, that object doesn't care, has no personality to care what you call it. You know, can you imagine calling a teacup, and the teacup suddenly animates like Disney, like those Disney shows, you know? And the teacup's like, what did you call me? Did you call me a teacup? Call me Sir Teacup, you know? It's like know your place, you know me. We have such the potential of seeing personality in everything. We can make the universe into a person. We can make any object imbue our personality. And what is the personality but a conditional opportunity to literally be a binary effort? That means if people are having a really tough time, or let's say somebody is on the verge of, you know, madness. The easiest explanation of this reality is that if people are willing to hear its chaotic dimension that nothing has to mean anything. That's chaos, and with the governing intelligence that we have, with the consciousness that is developed, chaos is transformed into order for a little while, you know, and we're trying to keep this order going. What is this choir music in the background? Okay, song. Okay, there we go. So, anyways, I just want to suggest that there's an innocence, and this innocence, the story of the world enters, and I feel this is the first impurity. This is one of the first obstacles that a human being, I find, psychologically, how would I say it? If we fear our shapelessness, we will fear being a shape. But if we don't fear our shapelessness, shapes become tools, they become technology. Some sages say that there's two types of virtue. There is the virtue of innocence, then there is the virtue of someone who has gone through the chaos of the battlefield and then has found the virtue. It's kind of like, one example is like every child who doesn't know better, and then another example, that there's a virtue to childhood. Because the freedom in the child's eyes is the freedom of mankind's future. And the other angle is, in some sense, or how, the other example would be this character from Vinland Saga, this comic, Japanese comic made into a show. Where the strongest character in that story, it was this incredible kind of Viking-inspired narrative, and the strongest character in the show that could endlessly defeat everybody suddenly realizes that a true warrior, a real warrior is a warrior that no longer fights with the sword. That means you kind of let go of the savageness because the world has found a better road. Carl Jung talked about the shadow. This means that if you see light in your life, there's going to be some shadows. Come on. Wherever there's great light, it's like that. That's where the shadows come from. Somebody's like, how do we get rid of the shadows? And then somebody realized, if we are to get rid of the shadows of this earth, we are to get rid of the sun. That means that the destruction of truth is the defeat of chaos. That means, even though chaos is there in the realm as the pull, as like a gravitational pull towards the meaningless, but the gravitational pull towards that attraction towards order, meaning, structure, design, these are gifts of the human mind. So life, we may avoid life, but life doesn't avoid us. And if life is going forth, that is the ultimate wisdom to the human being. That means this world is designed to go forth. Or Terence McKenna, the scholar, had an interesting sentence. He didn't say it's designed to go forth. He said, this world is not designed, he said, this world is not here to be understood, it's here to be appreciated. That was an incredible sentence by Terence McKenna. The world is here to be appreciated. And I would say that appreciation is when you can go forth with it. That was the biggest life-changing moment. I feel I could have taken the wrong road years ago, but the life-changing moment. When one realizes they don't know all that they know. When that moment comes, the soul frees its burden from language. When a great I don't know moment finds you, that is equivalent to the divine moment. I can tell you that mystery is something that strangely we fear. We fear the bizarre, the absurd. French existentialists have spoken about this. that it's as if it's not metaphysics, it's absurdity, because what else can you see? You know, I could totally totally see why the mind that divides language between truth or not, in some sense, there's a suffering that follows. There's a suffering anytime you cut the world into pieces. Any division of duality, any right or wrong that is made in the moment's nature is descended. That means if somebody, let's say, I'll give you an example. There was the story of this guy back in the day, he had a long beard. Somebody in the marketplace comes and tells him, I hope the music is still loud. But some guy in the marketplace comes and tells him, hey man, when you sleep, just for conversation in the market back in the day in a village, imagine. Somebody tells this old man with a long beard, when you sleep, do you put the beard underneath the blanket or do you put it above it? And the person said this with mischievous intent, imagine. And so this old man, he's never thought about it for however long, let's say, I don't know, 20 years his beard's been growing or something, that's an itchy face, right? It's like, who knew rope could grow out of her face, out of man's face. But anyways, this old man goes home, and gets ready to sleep, and then he puts the beard above the blanket, and then he puts the beard below the blanket, and he's not content, and he gets bothered, Every way he puts his beard, he can't sleep, and it bothers him so much that he cuts the beard off completely, and probably, has a new origin. But what happens? Really, why I shared that story is because that's the first wave of impurity. When the person made the other self-conscious, the self went into turbulence. That means you're either, if you see everything as the yin-yang symbol, people are either being in the yin-yang of it, the chaos and order conflict, or the recognition that it's one circle. In order to build an advanced civilization, by the nature of that description of an advanced civilization, it means it has to have an advanced beginning, an advanced middle, and an advanced end. It has to live. And it's a choice. That means the life cycle of civilizations, for now, we're trying to say in infinite to inspire, but how much the species is going to mature, and we're going to be like, are we ready to let this, are we ready as beings, as minds that were free before they were born? Are we ready to let the primate return to nature and our minds enter? Truly, what it is it may be one of the most remarkable transference. We have this view that consciousness has to be physical. We say consciousness, we don't say awareness. The consciousness means it's conditional to something. So if consciousness is beyond conditions, it is beyond definitions, it is beyond walls and boundaries. It is beyond any symbol that could act like its edge. It is beyond any mask that could act like its face. Because no one can tell you what the face of the faceless looks like. They can only give you a mirror and you can remember. So many ways to go, but we got one body. It's like, thanks nature, a mind filled with hope and a body filled with anguish. It's like, yeah. Nature is definitely, this may be one of the most absurd statements I've ever said on this talk, but this world could be the science project of the gods. both atheists and theists, shouting right now. I feel it's an immaterial intelligence that is transferring, it is leaping, and it has leaped into the primate, and we are it. And when we remember ourselves beyond, I shouldn't say humanism, but beyond animalism, right? Beyond animalism means, okay, we entered the multidimensional, we don't even have a word for this. When we went to a text, a textual, oh my god, I can't say, it's like a truth of texture. I don't know how to mesh it, how to make those words, but an advanced beginning to civilization and the need for a decision to be made. That means I understand we all have bodies, known bodies, and we have unknown minds. This is fair to say. I'm not like, this is even prior to the notion of even wondering about soul or not. We have an unknown awareness and a known content in the awareness. Now, if the mind is unknown, the body is known. We can't use the body to know the mind. It's impossible. Especially when the mind is creating the concept, it's like we're believing our own artwork as truth, and it's like all human beings have been doing this in the void. And so the true effort is to abide by the living universe. It's as if this whoever made this song that I'm playing right now is really like a roller coaster type of song. To continue. Pretty much I'm saying that a human being may be a gentle being, and then something savage and cruel and intense may happen, and it's not like the mind can undo what happens in life. The road is long, but the mind knows its destination. We are unknown viewers, an unknown viewing intelligence. I would even go as far as to say attributeless. And this unknown viewing intelligence is what we call knowledge is identification. And it's identification of intelligent space with all content in it. It's not like I can totally see how the body is kept and there's a brain, and right now like my eyes, my ears, my nose, everything, all my senses are taking in like my environment. But when I wonder about where are my senses happening, it's this strange dilemma of trying to localize one's own attention. It is true, we say that it is in the brain, right? It's like this first person point of view, but is it just the brain? It feels like brain plus something else. This is why I'm saying the healthiest secular approach to metaphysics is to treat the brain as an antenna, and different experiences as different antennas being able to pick up different realities. Because it's just too strange for me. Like I could understand like the planets, you know, I could totally like I could understand empty space, planets in empty space, like that's acceptable enough geometry. But creaturehood, like having a head, having organs, being a biological creature, this is like its design is too mysterious to just appear out of the void, right? It seems like there was a seed. It's as if, this may be a strange statement, but it's like the universe was seeded. And now, to even take that further, let's think if a seed in the soil became conscious, and it was like, I'm in meaningless reality. What can I do? That seed will be in darkness and meaninglessness until, and something strange pulls it. The light pulls it. So if the seed in the soil, in the darkness of the soil, just keeps enduring and being itself, it eventually grows out of the darkness of the past. And it's as if somebody's like, you know, who planted these flowers? And the mystic was like, who planted this universe? Everything on its own is bizarre. If that means an idea alone is bizarre, we can even say. And an idea alone is bizarre, but then the moment that it's like a memory alone makes no sense, but when there's more than one memory, then we're like, that person lived a life, you know. We start off simple, we accumulate experiences, people are experiencing a lot, but how much of it is conscious, how much of it is unconscious, how much of it is necessary. I don't know if people have this attitude, but I have some memories that I've consciously been like, okay, enough of that, you know. It's as if it's like if people treat their mind like a space, you can't be in a space and not aware where you are. The gentle soul is the human being that hasn't forgotten, hasn't banished their inner child yet. This doesn't mean the person allows one memory to be prioritized over the rest. The healthiest attitude is to just be present and watch the moment as it happens, and then you'll know how you happen. If the mind is treated as a space, the permission of space, and this may be a strange concept, but what if movement, imagine we put a leaf, we drop a leaf in a river, and the river is just carrying this leaf, or some stream or something. We can't say the leaf is moving, and we can't say the leaf is not moving. It's as if the leaf is moving, but it's moving because the river is moving. And we can say our bodies are moving, but then intelligence, rhythmic intelligence, that is where we notice that there's something more going on. That means the body can have a shadow, but the mind, you know what it is? It's like the soul is the sun, the mind is the object, and the body is the shadow. And once one recognizes they're a mind, the fear of the body goes away. Once you realize you are, in let's say, use an old school archaic term, once you realize you're a soul, then the fear of the mind goes away. And the fear of the mind doesn't mean it's like, it doesn't mean the person put a box on their head in it, like an ostrich putting its head in the dirt, like in shows. It's kind of like wondering if the fearless have a phobia of fear. I feel this is going to be a shorter episode. But really, it's just character changes. We're human beings, ultimately a creature that has never existed before. The DNA is unique. There's a game to play. As the creature plays the game, it gets defined by the game. If the characters in the game, if the player in the game stops on trying to look at the game, trying to understand the mechanics, the design, the nature, the heart of the game. the fear of the body, it's not that it goes away. It's just that fear in the outer realms, it is what it is. In the inner realms, it is how it can be. Think of it that way. And that can be is coming from the true witness of the statement, my mind, my body, my soul. Who's that mind? The world is unknown, and our fear to accept this has made us worship language. When we accept the world is unknown, and we accept every human being, they can in some sense, their contribution can be just exploration as a member of the tribe. There's no greater glory. I can tell you, there's nothing greater than explorer you can be in this world. It's like everything has, to some degree, any limitation has an edge. And when one looks at that edge long enough, they will wonder why the edge is there. Anything one looks at long enough, The mind's contentment, I would say, is in its friendship. There is a friendship with it's as if the body, mind, and soul, they're like three soldiers on a battlefield. Or think of it as if the soul is the general, the mind is the commanding officer, and let's say the body is the soldier. Now the soldier can't do anything until some command comes from the commanding officer. A human being can't function or advance or even train and cultivate greater dimensions of their body, if they're not aware of their mind, if they don't use their mind. The mind is the commanding officer, but it is not the general. That means the brain is the commanding officer, the heart, where love comes from, whatever that is. Unfortunately, there is a cruel dimension to this world, but fortunately our minds can tune out of it. The general doesn't show itself on the battlefield. That means which general goes in the battlefield only at a time of emergency. Think of all the movies a person has seen. Like a movie that comes to my mind, my favorite movie actually is Gladiator. And the general, he went into the battlefield, but he only went in because there was a strategic thing that the soul had to do in that moment. But the general usually is back in the field watching the whole scenery take place. So the soul is behind the scenes. The soul is even like a director of a film, like action, and the mind's like, am I alive? Oh my God. And the mind runs out to perform its part. Okay. Excuse me. Back to the gentle soul. Life is a journey. It's a journey in the space-time continuum. And the soul, as a general, it in some sense watches the battlefield and knows that there's going to be casualties. That means if the mind and body, if the body listen to the mind, the mind endures. And it's pretty much like if the mind is the commanding officer, the body is the soldier, and the soul is watching like a general from behind the scenes. The soul is just waiting to see if its mind and body play out. How the mind and body push forth the command to manifest. This may be a strange notion, but it could be that souls are commanded. This may be a really bizarre concept, but like souls may be commanded to, in some sense, take shape. It may be just a universe was given a command. And I'm not saying it from a divine agency, but I'm saying like a pattern, like a force. The body, it is a dance. The mind, requires championing. And the soul requires the final salute. That means whatever happens in this realm, that means the soul, the general knows. First of all, the general's attitude is that trying to, in some sense, not have casualties, but to, in some sense, have the most efficient strategy so there is the least casualties. Now, the efficient strategy is that the general stands back, not because he can't fight, it's because he is the backup system. He is the backup system if the commanding officer fails, right? And how many people, poetically in this realm have had different experiences, in logging into consciousness and logging out of consciousness. And so in those experiences, there was a force, even Heraclitus this Greek philosopher termed this word called the logos. And he perceived it as this inner guiding voice. In another way of saying, he perceived it as the mind of the planet, I feel. Like as the soul of the planet, not even the notion of mind, but the soul of the planet, the presence, the intelligence of the universe. And so the logos, this inner guiding voice, and different schools of thought see this as good, bad. This logos is like the general's intervention. If the commanding officer is out of line, the general intervenes. If the commanding officer is in line, and if there's something retaliation from the other side, it comes, But ultimately, it's as if we should not think of everybody on the planet wanting to, you know, become trillionaires, but rather having this notion that all intelligent movement is here to conduct some work, whatever that is. I mean, we have a body. This is required to be used for something. It's as if we are the key. We just don't know where the door is, you know. You know. And the whole journey of life is to find that moment in the history of a species in the void where you could give more than you could take. And then you will feel life lived. That's strangely a paradise of its own, I feel. You know, in the concept of yoga, they have these 4 paths. They say Raja Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, Karma Yoga, the yoga of work. And yoga, the word means union, and I'll explain the union of what. Oh my god, this choir music again. Excuse me. Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, the yoga of meditation, and Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of love. That means there's different ways for the intelligence in the moment to discover its inseparability with the intelligence that, as the mind is being the whole world, there's no other choice than to see an intelligent world. It is our birthright to see an intelligent universe, whether it is here or not. It is a right, it is a freedom. That means if there was a, if nobody had to believe anything and all ideology was laid out like you know, you could endlessly choose from them, you know. The person will seek the new of the new of the new to only realize after that they still want the new. The commanding officer, it just wants to get the task done. The soldier just wants to listen and get home, the body. But the general has to keep them in line. For the progress, that means it's as if like one in a group activity, let's say in a when armies are like clashing, that's a moment where if there is one person off rhythm, it disrupts the whole rhythm, you know. And I feel we're gonna build the advanced civilization as 8 billion creatures in this world, and it's gonna be like an orchestra. Kind of even like the movie Kung Fu Hustle, where there were like normal people, suddenly they were all like martial artists. What I mean by this is that there is a hidden art to how no one else in this world has your eyes, whoever you're listening. That is your power. And that power, it's not power that you can control to do something, to change others, but I would say it's more like You use it to play the best song you can before the instrument is out of the view. You know, so it's kind of like how Rumi says, be living poetry. That means life moves from the dimensions of just conceptualization and then the rawness of the unknown comes. You know, it's like whatever reality simulation a human being entertains, the unknown is like this wind, and when it gets closer it becomes intense. You know, and so then the person realizes in a multi-dimensional landscape they were only living with the desire of one dimension. Now more than ever, the advanced communicators need to roar, because we have reached a point where we are like the first explorers. That means, does anybody care how the first explorer in the Amazons with a machete cut a branch? Nobody cares how that happened. But they care about what was beyond the obstacle, you know, beyond the limitation. You know, people wanting to, I feel like this is the difference between what I have termed as the advanced communicator. This is how I see the true human being, and from the yogic mystical angle. The yogic mystical angle is like the soldier is tired, so the soldier is being told to stop, and the mind also is being told to stop abiding and listening to its order and its command. The commanding officer and the soldier have stopped listening to the general. They have stopped listening to their source, to where life force comes from. You know, deep down we are the center of our universe. I don't know what it is. I feel this renaissance is coming. I feel it's like there's a strange astral storm. That language is going to, the moment we start using language differently, we cannot see them the same. You know, that's the cool thing about speech. It's kind of, it also has this bulldozer effect. The advanced communicator is no longer judging this is good, this is bad. That is old school. The advanced communicator just sees multiple dimensions, allows the world to make the first chess move, then there is geometry, observes the geometry, and after all the possible dimensions of view have been fathomed, then marches with incredible intensity. That means I have way more respect for people who take a long time to do something properly than just people who I don't know, there's something to precision that's always incredible to watch, right? I've seen this in my life from others, you know. That's one thing that I feel I was blessed to notice in this life. In the middle of the story of the world, there was geometry everywhere, and this geometry stood on its own. What that means is think of the mind being like, okay, I'm a person. I'm a moment, you know. And then the personality reaching a certain point being like, wait a minute, what is a personality? Like, how do we define it, right? And so the personality, because we sleep and we wake up and in deep sleep we're nothing, it's something that scintillates. It awakens. We are not born into personalities, we wake up into personalities. And if the mind is weak, usually the world brands them with a personality, and they don't understand that the reason they have free will is to discover who they are. You know, free will is not just to change the world, you know, it's like way before a person has to want to touch the world, they have to have broken themselves a couple times. And then after, and when I say broken themselves, I mean not to go into a sort of apathetic anguish of one's own defeat, but to look at one's own defeat and the general suddenly appears as the commanding officer has fell, and the general says, get up. You know, and it's like this instant moment where the person suddenly pushes all thoughts and just goes where the heart demands, you know. Lorna in the chat section says geometry is the only consistent. Yeah, that's a very nice statement. It is that is one thing that even if we create a time machine, it doesn't matter where we go in time. There's geometry. Worldhood requires shape, and only reason we are talking about subjects, and we're not just being like a bunch of objects in a room, is because of this animate force, and this animate force just being given to the gene. Genes. I mean, it's so bizarre how history has gone forth because of epigenetics and cultural things, like because of so many invisible, arbitrary forces influencing person's behavior. We can no longer say consciousness is like, we can never find pure consciousness, it seems. So I feel that materialism puts the mystery of the mind out of reach. And ultimately, the general is timeless. The mind creates time and the body experiences it. And freedom, if you want geometrical freedom, it's instant. The person was afraid of dismissal, and they're like, no way, I'm the periodic table right now, you know? And the person looks at the world, it's like, oh my god, the Buddhists were right. The periodic table is endlessly reincarnating into creatures and universes and everything. And I feel there's something perhaps very healing about spherical structures. I feel if we were living inside sphere cities above the earth, that would be way more healthier than to, live on land. It's like, and the rug of natural disaster, like natural disasters could pull the rug from underneath our feet. The gentle soul must carry on, because what else can it do? I'm going to read a poem I wrote. Okay, so before I end off, actually, a poem from this unpublished poetry collection called Starlight Sanctuaries. It's called Beyond Duality Sermon. What provides a magnanimous conception? Trust the work of your cosmic intelligence. There are no borders in familiarity. As an advocate of eternal steps into temporal passages, the truth is not the ripple, but the clear reflection of an absolute sky. When wonder ponders into one view, every attempt is a temporalness at a locality. Can you be so transcendental that both reality and the unreal have questions for you? When the world turns, it belongs to the cosmos spinning in its way. Can a hidden message reveal the unhidden? Or does your mere walk towards the hidden suggest there was never anything in hiding? What is real here is unreal there, but truth is beyond duality's sermon. Okay, this poem is telling me not to talk anymore. Let me see if I have a poem on gentleness here. There has to probably be one, Serene Revelations, there we go. What has revealed itself when knowledge is too shy to dance? Can a catastrophe be the 10th life of the cat? Mystery likes to roam in the eyes of man. Is language a transcendental activity? Is simplicity the lion's roar without presupposition? All vacancies are occupied by emptiness. The madness of temporal skin is the search for eternal veins, an auspicious agenda beyond the face of the age. Eons have found each other in an instant. Can words affect worlds? Rise beyond what you have ignored. Lovers belong to an ambition unborn. Is your truth expecting a door? How long is this? Are you the key or the hole? Sometimes when I sleep, only to awake as the cosmos. The stars whisper in my nearest ear. I've written this in quotations here. So the stars whisper in my nearest ear. What gives fear its name? In my silence, omniscience never needs an answer. You see, that's when we surpass even the question and answer phase. We're gonna surpass good and bad, but to surpass the question, that's like the advancement beyond the language threshold. I mean, we gotta definitely, as creatures on this planet, consider that we are intelligence. Let's say having roots in an observable universe could be totally different than how we have allowed language to encapsulate us in a certainty, in a hollow certainty. It's like, what do people know when we don't even know the edge of the universe? You know, it's like, somebody please go measure the sky for me, you know? You see, we are living in our dreams. That means we have awakened in our dreams, you know? Or I don't know, maybe for some audiences it's like you are getting mad, awaken to your dreams, okay? Let me see if there's another gentle poem in this gentle poetry I'm reading. Oh my god, gentleness of the breeze, there we go. What succeeds? Okay, I gotta find a different song, let me see. Okay. So gentleness of the breeze. What succeeds, regardless of any temporal effect, is man navigating thought as a vehicle dependent on the sunrise. Love is committed to its absolute dance. Some lovers have kissed beyond the lips of space and time. Every moment is sacred evocation. Trust the growth of your nature of being. Is there a remedy when classifications condemned all beings to a certain end? Be fearless and feel heaven's breeze on your face made of earth. Let the world turn as it does. Regardless of individual involvement, the collective has already arrived. You see, our victory beat us to our defeat. Rise, mankind, rise. Because now more than ever, we need to not just usher in multidimensional context, but through honor, the theme of honor and exploration, completely give a makeover to the global civility. That means we need literally an advancement of communication all over on the planet, and this is a strategy to try to get rhythmic intelligence, as if we're trying to get this great fire of of the mystery of the human end going. You know, and so everybody's like, yeah, I don't know what happens to humanity. Everybody gets in on this notion that civilization is worth advancing. And if we entertain this model I've designed of the outer realms and the inner realms, think about it this way: in front of your eyes, like the purpose of life is to advance civilization. Behind your eyes, the purpose of life is to advance communication. Why else do we have minds and ability to communicate? I mean, it's just like there's something here that it's like if we just want an emotional filter on what is right or wrong, we will miss out on all the exploration that could be had, right? So people have to be fearless enough to go into a moment where they don't know, and it's okay. It's like they go back to this simple unknown. You know, think of it like a video game. If the unknown, if you don't like, if you wanted to have a relationship with the unknown, or which is pretty much just the whole point of human life, I find, the whole point of knowledge. But if we want to have a relationship with unknown, that means we gotta first know ourselves well and be stabilized and have a human headquarters of imagery. Then the person's like, okay, let's consider the mind as different dimensions. Then you start, just like how a person moves their body around to figure out what they are, you start getting, I should use the word refascinated in your own intelligence as it is happening in the moment, as if you don't know what it is. I am telling you, it's like when I give these talks, there's the unknown is like right beside me. You know, and when I say right beside me, I mean like literally at the edge of the sky is unknown, and the edge of the sky is right beside me. You know, everything, language is a technology. Once we use it well, then liberty will be its own bell. There's a poem I want to read. This poem is called "O Mightiest of the Mightiest." I'll read this before I end off. There we go. O mightiest of the mightiest, O mightiest of the mightiest, where am I? Many tears have pilgrimaged beyond the blindness of my temporal eyes, but what remains? O mightiest of the mightiest, how is conception here? What has made this world feel caged in the 10 cities of the fingertips? What tip can tip over causality? All phenomena comes from divine administration. But these words do not belong to the ink. The true path is not concerned about the truth in changing shapes. What educates beyond the heroic cape? Seize the moment, for it has seized you first. O mightiest of the mightiest, how has all come to be, the universe within you? That means those who truly access, I would say, the original earth. That means think as if 8 billion human beings, they open their eyes. Not all of them are in the original earth. Everybody's in their own inner realm filter of the outer realm. But when you find the original earth, the original earth, that original earth is a domain where you attain a state of mind where there is not any resistance. The soul, it's as if the commanding officer and the soul, a soldier midway in the battlefield, were for a second stopped, and the general started walking, and they were all three of them were teleported into this garden, imagine, you know? And so then when they came back from the garden, imagine, the commanding officer realized that there is gardens beyond here, you know? So when fear is dismissed, that means fear is like not ready to work usually. And I'll repeat the last part. O mightiest of the mightiest, how has all come to be the universe within you? And any person who hears this, who feels they're mighty enough, answer that last part of the poem in the chat section. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I don't know what else I could say about a gentle soul. That the gentle soul, it's worth being gentle. It's worth that you find yourself in savageness and you don't take the savage road, because savageness descends one's nature. That means violence is a sign of those who have given up on their mind. As Isaac Asimov says, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. That means if your mind's here to give that competence. So if the person can find a resolve that doesn't destroy, 4.5 billion years of evolution, like that would be a start. Civilization requires some sort of stronghold of decency. That decency can't come without honor. The gentle soul, honor, and the will to continue going forth are its greatest allies. And you know what's strange? A person's mind can give names to the moment. You can name moments, believe it or not, and that's what we call a concept. Can you imagine? We don't realize. Imagine in a subtler dimension. This is just hypothetical, but imagine there was a dimension where there was another dimension beyond our sensory perception, and in that dimension, our thoughts actually had a sort of occupied space. And so if our thoughts occupied space, and imagine there was some sort of interdimensionality going on of creaturehood, it was as if suddenly like me speaking right now, I might not realize it, but maybe, I think usually when the brain gives off waves, it's signaling to something. That means that's the thing, that in a multidimensional realm, there is no... The directness of the experiential intelligence is the only safety. That means those who experience life directly, and I'll tell you, I've learned this from others more than I've learned it from myself. I fractally have understood it in myself, but that unless one let goes of who they are, they will never see who they are meant to be, as Lao Tzu says. I feel that's the point. And those who are gentle, another thing, let's say there's a gentleness, we're looking at the future generations. There's some scholars who are like, the future generations are becoming too gentle and weak and they don't know what to do. And I feel the attitude should be more like their gentleness is ushering in a complete stepping away from the animalistic problem. That means what it is human beings becoming gentle is not the problem. Human beings forgetting that wilderness they had access to when they were savage is the problem. So if we could find a way where we could have the most gentle and advanced human beings on Earth, but then in cyberspace we fought and had endless wars. Can you imagine in the future? In cyberspace, all violence gets pushed in cyberspace. It's like leaders of nations want to go to war, and like all the gamers in the world sign a petition. Sign a petition, and the leaders of nations have to go in the UN and play this world video game where their exact militaries are made in a cyberspace video game, and they actually have their war in cyberspace in a video game rather than in reality, because people's lives matter, and war is unnecessary. That means any situation where a human being can be dismissed out of the realm is an inefficient position to be in, I find. Right? We gotta care for the species, but we also have to care for the potential of the species.
That means that if someone just cares for the world in a certain way, it means in order to advance, you have to consider all the other angles. And there's always more angles. That's, I feel, one hidden truth to the realm. There is more to everything. That means the end and the beginning were myths. They were abstract. They were as arbitrary. And it seems that the presence of the moment is where it is. Where the moment is. Giordano Bruno has this quote where he says, "Time is the father of truth, its mother is our mind." That means all life is a symbiosis between an invisible field and everything in that invisible field. And there's two types of fields emerging, where there's an ultimate invisible field that everybody has to forget in order to be individual. It's just a precaution, like it has to be done. You know, that person has to forget. Because if they don't forget, then what's the point of coming somewhere new? That means I was like, it's like, is the past more important, or is the future and the present no stands? And the present has stands. Or is stands. I just want to see an advanced civilization before all of our eyes close. I mean, that's ultimately the whole point of this podcast, I would say. And the gentle soul is on the right track. That's all I'm saying. There could be somebody who's gentle and thinks that gentleness is like, it's like society doesn't need that gentleness. But that gentleness is something where you should preserve it in the inner realms. That means society is more culture, and society is, I feel everybody knows this, but it's in some sense you reveal as the atmosphere demands. We are a part of the coin, and the world is the other part. And if we can learn to accept the world, we have automatically accepted ourselves. And that means if somebody accepts the world, everything in the world, but they don't accept themselves, you haven't accepted the world, because you are the world. You are a part of the world. If a person accepts themselves but doesn't accept others, that means they haven't accepted the world. That means we just need to have the species be like, okay, this is the world, and we're creatures in the void, and it's okay. You know, it's okay to be on this. You know, it's like when I don't know. There's so much more to the realm, and we are content with what we see. I mean, how many magic shows do we need until we get out of the theater? The mystics were onto something, and may their glow not be forgotten. The gentle soul is ahead of their time. In one of my writings, there was something about some people who are, you see the mind, think of it this way, as if your mind, the body, mind, soul analogy, think of the soul as the peak of the mountain, the body the bottom, and the mind the journey to get to the peak. And when human beings in a spiritual narrative are trying to live their lives, they're trying to get to the peak of their mind, like the truth of their mind, pretty much, right? And this is the strange thing that happens, that as the mind goes closer to the soul, it becomes a creator. As the mind comes closer to the world, it becomes a creation. And so this is the strange thing, that if a person, a true spiritual person, doesn't exist, and literally doesn't exist, by definition doesn't exist, is beyond existence, therefore you can't be justified by existence or its anti. Or its opposite. That means what the world needs is to just realize the book will become a notebook, and your mind is how history is written. That's like every person who's written history and all the scribes that people don't care about. You know, it's like there should be a day where we just all call it Scribe Day, and all all the human beings on the planet have been scribes. We just like everybody just for 10 minutes claps for them. Like at a certain hour, you know. Or sorry, what am I saying? Everybody claps. Everybody starts writing and scribing, writing down something exactly accurate about their world or something about the dimensions of their realm they have seen, and they just give this essay to, I don't know, what the future will see. Who knows? Anyways, thanks for listening, and it's way more worth living as a mind than a mind moving a body than just a body moving a mind, because whatever movement the body does, eventually where your mind is going is the body's destination, right? That means I find it's like the attention that has to shift. That means the pilot has to land the plane and change the plane, or eject out of the plane, or I don't know, there's various ways we can see. But anyways, thanks for listening. I'll be on Discord for those interested, and anybody just what do I want to say? Be gentle. Because the future has no reason to not be.